Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know this isn't typical for my channel. It's usually this Camaro. It's usually cars, hot rods. I got a Mustang back there I'm gonna be putting back together soon, which will be on the channel. I got an exhaust coming for MagnaFlow for this Camaro. I'm gonna get this car to the track. But in the meantime, I was asked by the Little League field in town, the director, if I'd be willing to go through this tractor for them, and I said, sure, why not? So I figured I'd post it. Maybe there's a DIYer out there that wants to work on their lawn tractor and really doesn't know how. This is just gonna be basic maintenance. I'm gonna do an oil change, replace the spark plugs, fuel filter, air filter. I'm gonna drop the deck, take the deck off, so I can get a good look at the blades, the belts, and the actual pulleys, bearings, anything I can lube and grease, I will. It's gonna be pretty straightforward, but hopefully this will help somebody. All right, so the first thing I did was hose this tractor down. Like I said, it's in the ball field. It was absolutely caked and covered everywhere. The deck was really covered, and that's what I want to be able to look at to make sure there's no cracks or rot when I get it off. I'll probably have to clean it some more. But the first thing I'm gonna do is the oil change. So I'll get a shallow pan underneath there, and we'll, right here, it's nice. It's actually pretty convenient on this Kawasaki engine. This is the engine group is FH491. So if you order a maintenance kit, you can get it from Kawasaki or you can get it right from Deere. You're gonna need to know your engine group number. So I actually messed that up when I first bought these parts. I ended up buying these individually, locally. But I bought the wrong kit. I wasn't looking at the engine group when I ordered it off Amazon. I just put in X300. I bought the kit, got the kit. It was incorrect, and then when I read the product details, it says make sure you check the your engine group. So I failed to do that. So the correct kit for this X300, if this is specifically what you're working on, and it has a FH491 engine group, you're going to want the John Deere kit LG256. And it comes with everything you see here. And it comes also with 2 quarts of oil. But if you're going to buy these individually, I'll just rattle off the part numbers for you. So this fuel filter, these are going to be a generic part number. But this one's a P09032-3DP. Your spark plugs are BPM R6A. Oil filter 49065-0724. Then you're going to have an element and a pre-filter. It's short change, just do them both. So it's 11013-034. That's your pre-filter. And then your actual air filter is 11013-7017. And that'll get you going. I didn't buy a belt or blades yet. I figured I'd wait till I got the deck off, flipped it over, see what I'm looking at. If I have to, I will. If I can just shop it them, I will. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So for now, I'm just gonna drain the oil and change out this oil filter. One thing I'll note on this dipstick, I'm gonna make a little bit of a mess because I got one hand here. But if you read this stick when you check it, for correct oil level, do not turn cap on the threads. So that's one thing you're gonna make sure you do, because these threads, I don't know, what do you say, a ½ inch? This will turn down. If you're screwing this all the way down and then getting your level that way, instead of just pushing it down on the threads like this, you're gonna be lower down into the crankcase and you're gonna have a lower oil level. So you wanna make sure you check it up like this, up high. So theoretically, when you're done and this is full, you screw this down and you check it, it's gonna show a higher reading, which it should, because you wanna check it on top of the threads, if that makes sense. I probably butchered that, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. One thing you wanna make sure you do is drain this, not while the machine's piping hot, but fire it up, let it run, get it nice and warm. You can keep putting your hand on the oil filter just to get some heat in it, to get the viscosity. to be able to drain this and get as much oil out as you can. And just take your time, let it sit there and drain. It's probably been, I don't know, 5 minutes, and it's right down to a drip. But it'll keep slowly streaming out. You want to get as much out as you can. And typically I'll just pour a little bit of fresh oil in there to try to flush out what's at the very bottom. All right, next is the oil filter. Again, pretty straightforward. Already loosened it up. You can see it's got a little, like a little funnel here, a little diverter, we'll call it. So the oil hits that, and it actually streams right down through this channel, right into the bucket. It's already cracked it, so all the fluid's already dumped out of it. What I'll do is I'll spin this off. And then just take a look in here. Well, the one thing you want to make sure is the gasket's not left behind. If it is, obviously pop it off. That's something with cars, unfortunately, those quick Jiffy Lube, stuff like that, they'll whip a filter off, not check it, they'll double gasket it, and the thing will leak like a sieve. But I'll wipe all this, clean this all up, I'll keep this side dry, and then the new oil filter, I'll fill up once so it goes into the pleats. I won't top it off again because when you turn the oil filter sideways and put it on, you're gonna lose what you just put in. So I fill it one time to the top, it soaks into the element, and that's it. Then I put oil on the gasket, screw it on, and once it seats itself, the filter, once it touches, you'll feel the resistance, I'll turn it 3/4 of a turn, and that's it. So like I said, this filter's dry right now. I'll put some oil in there, right to the top, and you'll see it'll bubble down. So it's soaking in the pleats, but because this filter's being installed sideways, I'm not gonna add any more. That'll be good. If I put any more in it and I turn it sideways, it's just gonna come out. Next thing I'll do is grab some of that oil and then just put it right around this gasket. And that's gonna help when it hits the face of the block to not, you don't want this gasket to roll or get cinched up. Plus it'll help you turn it that 3/4 of a turn. All right, so that face is nice and clean. I got the filter oiled. There is some oil still on the top, so I'm probably gonna lose a tiny bit, but that's okay. Haven't cleaned anything up yet. So you'll put this on, screw it all the way down till it hits the face. So right there, it's just touching. And what I'll do is I'll just pick anything I can. So I'll look at this mark right there, that D. I want that D to be over here. And that'll be 3/4 of a turn. Just a little bit more. And there it is, that D is on this side. You can mark it with a marker, whatever you gotta do to get it on there. But that's it. So the next thing I'll do is I'll hit all this with brake clean. You want this really clean so that you can find leaks quickly. If it's leaking and you're not checking the oil before every use, but you can see a leak, that's gonna make you aware, and you're gonna end up checking your oil level. All right, so I filled the crankcase. It took all but 4 ounces in the end. So that's 60 ounces altogether. I did check the dipstick just out of curiosity. When you screw it down, when you check it without screwing it down and get it right to the line, which is what it wants you to do, I ended up screwing it down and then checking it, and it gets to the end of that U to the right, between the U and the L. So if you were to check it or fill it by screwing this cap all the way down, you'll be pretty low, all of halfway in that hash mark. So just be cautious of that. So this is full. I ran it, checked it again. Had to add just a little bit of oil. So the next thing I'm gonna do is the air filter. So the air filter is just these 2 tabs. Push them down and watch it fall out. But if you had 2 hands, you'd be able to hold it so it doesn't just fall out. And this is pretty straightforward too. So you just pop this filter out. And then you have that pre-filter underneath. Like I said, we're gonna replace both of those. This housing, I just like to inspect it to see how much dirt's in there. So I'm gonna wash all that out, dry that out, and put it back together. All right, so just reverse the process. I got this all cleaned up. So put your new pre-filter in first. Make sure it sits all the way down. And then grab your new filter. Just make sure it's sitting flush and sealed all the way around. This is on the ball field, so there's a lot of clay being kicked up, but even if you're just in your yard, your lawn, the mower's just non-stop kicking up, whether it's pollen, dust, dirt, whatever. Just want to make sure your air box is nice and tight. Yeah. That's good, it's locked in, it's tight, air filter is done. So next thing I'm going to do is spark plugs. So we'll pull these off. There's 2 on here. Let's see what size this is. I had a ratchet set up, so it's 13/16. This is pretty straightforward. I'll pop these off. I just got to check the gap to see what the gap is. I'm not sure. I'm going to look it up. And I'll make sure they're gapped correctly. I like to put some anti-seize on the threads and then tighten them up. So it is interesting, the plugs, that the new plug is different compared to the plug that I pulled out. Just looking at the electrode, the plug I pulled out's a much colder plug, which is probably going to help it. If you look, it looks really fouled, like it doesn't have hot enough burn. I tried checking the part number on the one that came out, and I can't find anything linked to it. But the part number to this new one is for this engine group, so see how it runs after. It seemed to be running fine, but looking at that plug, there is a lot of carbon deposit on there, so I think this hotter plug is going to help it. All right, so the gap's set for 29 thousandths. I did have to open it up. I got the anti-seize on there, and if you look at that washer at the bottom, that's a crush washer. You want the anti-seize for 2 reasons: to get it out after, and another one is so you don't gall up the aluminum as you're tightening this up, or when you go to remove it. It's nothing worse than having the threads of the aluminum head still in the spark plug when you take it out. I've been there. But that washer, once it seats, you're gonna tighten it up. You'll feel it starting to get tight, and then you're going to be squashing that washer. And after that, 16 foot-pounds is what it calls for. So I'll torque that down to 16 foot-pounds. All right, so I have that torqued down. One thing you want to do is, this tube has lasted me forever. You want to grab some dielectric grease, tune-up grease they call it. Especially for this mower, it's going to be living its whole life outside in the moisture. Put a little in the boot and a little at the end just to help with corrosion. When you go to take these back off, they'll come off a lot easier too for the next change. Just another thing to think of, when you push this boot on, make sure it actually feels like it kind of snaps on there. When you go to pull it off, you have to actually use a little force. After some time, that if you look inside, the end of that spark plug, that connector will open up. So even though it slides on, if it slides on too easy and doesn't kind of snap on, just take a pair of pliers and squeeze the boot kind of where my fingers are, and squeeze it in just a little bit so you can see it close up, so that you can get it to snap on again, especially on the mower. There's a lot of vibration. You don't want this thing popping off or just sitting there. You won't even notice it, but you'll have a weaker arc on this side, and you'll start fouling out the plug, and then you'll start just getting a lot of carbon deposit on the end of the plug. All right, so I got the other plug done too. Same thing as the other side. The plug was really fouled. I don't know if these were swapped out at one time and it was too cold of a plug, not getting a good burn or not. I'm not sure, but I put these plugs in, fired it up, it fired right up. I don't want to say I noticed a difference. It seemed like it started a little easier, but I probably honestly wasn't really paying attention with the old plugs. So I went ahead and replaced the fuel filter too. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. These 2 clamps you pop off, you wrestle it off, pop the new one on. Fired it up again, and it's running well. The kit actually came with, even though it was the wrong kit that I now own, this sticker came with it. So I just added the 100 hours to it and a year. If you go by this chart that's on your machine, it'll tell you oil change every 100 hours or every year. So that's that. The next thing I'm going to do is pull this deck off. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to lower the deck all the way down. And when the deck's down, I'm going to do the front arm first. I'm going to pull this pin out without launching it. On both sides, these arms will come right off. And then in the back end, it's the same thing. There's a pin in the back. I'll show you. Let me get the deck down on the ground. All right, I don't want to mess with his mower height setting, so it's still a little bit off the ground, but it is lower. It's not a ton of weight there. So same thing on this side. I'm going to pull this pin. So you pull that towards you and then push out. And then there's going to be some weight on this one, so I'm going to need 2 hands. Most likely to get this off. Oh, there we go. So get that arm off. Take that off. And then the next thing I'm going to do is get the spring tension off to get the belt off. You'll see if I can get it. Right there, there's a bar with a spring on it. There's actually a hole, a square hole for a 3/8 ratchet to go on, so you can get the spring tension off to get the belt off. But there's not a ton of tension on there. I'm gonna see if I can just kind of muscle the belt off. Yep, not that hard. So I pulled that off. Now we're disconnected from the machine. The belt's just laying on top of the deck. The next thing we're gonna do, sorry if this thing's shaky, I'm laying on the ground here, is pull this pin on both sides. So it's the same thing as the front. This angled pin, pull towards you, pops right off, and then you gotta push this pin through and then pull from the other side. And here's the pin that was on the back side going all the way through this arm. This is to lift and lower. There's your pivot point. So when you're lifting and lowering this deck, this is the arm that's doing it. And then the other one is setting your left to right, up and down to level the deck and to carry the front weight. So I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side, and then this deck will be sitting on the garage floor, and then we'll just slide it out and inspect the deck. So here's the pin on the other side, same deal. Take the pin out, and then I'm gonna push this through, but I am gonna do this with 2 hands just because there is a lot of weight and it's all suspended on this one pin right now. But you get the idea. I'm gonna push that through and this whole deck will be sitting on the ground. Alrighty, and that's that. So next I'm gonna pick the deck up to get the arms out of the way, and then we can slide this right out. Alright, so I lifted the arms with the pedal. As you can see, it looks like there's plenty of clearance. So you should be able to grab this, yank it right out. So this is what we're looking at. So next thing I'm gonna check is, I'm gonna check all the pulleys. Looks like there's 5 of them all together. Got your 2 where your blades are attached. I like to just check for end play. That guy seems pretty good. That guy seems good. And then you got 3 idlers. So you got an idler here. A little bit of play. Yeah, those feel pretty good. I don't know if there's any grease fittings on them. I'm gonna flip it over and then check the blades. All right, so get the deck flipped over. Everything actually looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'm gonna pop these blades off and just file the edges again, but nothing crazy. There's no big chunks missing. One thing I'll say is this sat all winter with this grass in here. At the end of your season, you want to take this deck off and do what I'm doing here and clean it. So this grass, like this clump right here, it holds all that moisture underneath. That's what starts prematurely rotting these decks out. So if you can't, as much as you try to rinse them while it's on the machine, even going up ramps, you can't really get it all out. So your best bet is to just take the thing off, flip it upside down, scrape all this grass off, and then I'm gonna actually put it outside and hose it down and to allow it to dry out so it doesn't keep rotting it out. You can see the difference. You can see right here there's already rot starting, and then over here it actually looks like it's in pretty good shape because it has the ability to dry out. So just something to think of if you want your deck to last longer than 10 years. Just take it off every year, clean it out. All right, so I'm done scraping the bottom of this deck just to get an idea. You can see this whole corner, this is where it was the heaviest, and it's still wet. I mean, it's been sitting for months, all winter, and it's actually still retained all its moisture underneath all that grass. And you can see the surface rust already starting. It's actually starting to rot a little bit already. Same thing in that corner. You can see how dark it is because it's wet. Underneath the blades, if I zoom out a little bit, you'll see it. This whole area was soaked. And just to get an idea, that's how much came out. Stuck to the bottom of the deck. So at the end of every season, even if it's heavy, like he's doing ball fields, I mean, it's a lot of grass, a lot of wet grass. I may even pull this off halfway through the season just to clean it, hose it down. If you want to make it last, I like to make things last as long as I can because I'm cheap. So I'm going to rinse this out. I'm going to pop these blades off. I'll hand file the edges again and then put it back together. All right, so here's the blades. And when I said hand file, I meant to really hand file them. So I just use this flat file here, hold it nice and square, and just run across nice and square. I already did this side. You can see that one little ding right there. That's nothing, but it's nice and sharp. So you don't want to take too much material off. You don't want to hit it with a grinder. You'll actually throw these things way out of balance, and you'll be shaking that deck like crazy. So I hit this side first, and then I'll go to the back side. Same thing, go across, but just keep an edge. You just follow the factory edge, filing it, and then come back to this side last, and then nice and lightly, you can file it until you get a nice sharp edge. So I did this side already. Didn't really take off much material. And here's the same blade, but the other side. Same thing. It was a little more damage on this end, so I just hand filed it a little bit more, but it's nice and smooth all the way down. Same thing, hit the back side, nice sharp edge. And just to give you an idea, before I started, here's the other blade. It's not really that bad. It's just lost its sharp edge. You know, you can see like it's jagged. That's that side. And this side definitely hit a rock or two. But you can file all that out, save these blades. Or you could bring them to the local, like if you have a lawn and garden, like a Husqvarna dealer or John Deere dealer in the area, they'll sharpen them for you. Yeah, you can see this one's got quite a few rock dings taken out of it, but I'll file these. Once these are filed, cleaned up, I'm just going to bolt them back up and put the deck back on, and that's going to be the end of this. Yeah, so these cleaned up pretty well. Could definitely save them. They really weren't that bad. They probably would have been fine for another season, but it's the beginning of the year, so it was worth doing it while I had it in the shop. All right, so I got the deck back on. You just reverse the process. Start with the rear. Once you get one of those studs in on one arm, that carries most of the weight. Grab the other side. Then I put the belt on. I didn't have to use that bar. I actually just grabbed the belt, and you pull on that spring tension. It's not a ton of spring tension, so I was able just to pop it back on, put that bar in the front back on, and same thing as taking it off, one pin at a time. Put that spring clip in, clevis pin, whatever you want to call it. So that's done. Deck's back on. We cleaned the deck, inspected the pulleys, inspected the belt. Those were good. Hand sharpened the blades, changed the oil, changed the fuel filter, changed the air filter, inspected and changed the spark plugs, set the gap on the plugs. Battery's good. Replaced the fuel filter. The only thing I'm going to do now is just grease this front end on both sides. One tip is make sure this is really clean, the Zerk fitting. If you have any crud on the end of that first pump of grease is going to push that crud straight in. And that's just gonna wear whatever type of bearing's inside there, whether it's a sleeve bearing, ball bearing, doesn't matter, it's gonna destroy it. So you don't wanna get any material in there. So I'm gonna grease both sides, and that's gonna be it. It's ready to go. All right, so that's a wrap. I took it for a ride. It runs nice, it cuts nice, drives well. If this video helped you, think about subscribing and liking, and catch you in the next one.